And I'm just thrilled to be part of your class. I look a little older than some of you. Today, your names are going to be added to those of other illustrious alumni who have played prominent roles in our country. Frederick Banting, who won a Nobel Prize for the discovery of insulin. Astronauts Roberta Bondar and Bjarne Tryggvason. Business leaders George Cope of BCE, who I think will be on this platform next week. Galen Weston of George Weston Limited. Linda Hasenfratz of Linamar Corporation. Former Ontario Premiers John Robarts and David Peterson. My friend London Mayor Joe Fontana. Olympic champion Silken Laumann. And even, dare I mention his name, Kevin O'Leary, who seems to be everywhere on the CBC these days. That just names a few. Please don't emulate all of them. But let me say, first, I'll tell you, there's one lesson I learned in politics that I haven't forgotten, which is stand up to be seen, speak up to be heard, and sit down to be appreciated. So I know this is a big day for all of you, but Dr. Chalkman and I exchanged a few recollections of our close mutual friend, David Johnston, who now wears even more auspicious robes than these, as president of the University of Waterloo, he liked telling the story of the university in the southern U.S., which was offered a very large gift on one condition, and that was the granting of an honorary degree to the donor's prized racehorse. And after great discussion, of course, the Senate would not approve of such a thing, but the Board of Governors had its way to get the contribution. And so, in compensation, the president announced on that day that this was the first time that that university was granting an honorary degree to both ends of a horse. And I must say, the other thing that strikes me is John F. Kennedy's warning to colleague politicians never to have your picture taken wearing a funny hat. One of my parliamentary colleagues, Gilles Duceppe, forgot that one day when he visited a dairy in Quebec and was pictured wearing a hairnet. He never heard the end of it in the House of Commons, I can tell you. This is, though, for you graduates, a great day for you. You've embraced some difficult challenges. You've passed tough exams. You've worked hard. And according to Western's reputation, you've also played hard sometimes as well. This is a day of celebration for your families as well. They've followed every step of your journey. They've placed their hopes in you. They've sent money, and they wished you'd call home more often. And as a parent myself, I can tell you, texting is just not the same as a phone call. Doesn't count. And I'm especially glad to be sharing this day with graduates from both the faculties of arts and sciences. My first degree was a BA, but I straddled arts and sciences with a double major in political science and mathematics. I studied political science because I was fascinated by politics. I grew up in an Irish household in which no meal was complete without a rousing political debate. My mother was a conservative, my dad was a liberal, and I could take either side depending on whom I wanted to annoy on any particular moment. I studied math because I loved its linearity and its logic, and because I liked being able to look up the answers in the back of the textbook. Now, politics is definitely more art than science. But as Minister of Industry, as you've heard, I was responsible for much of the government's science policy and agencies such as the National Research Council, the Canadian Foundation for Innovation, NSERC, the Canadian Space Agency. As an undergraduate, I received what I believe a general arts education should be. It was not vocational or technical or professional. At the time, I confess, I didn't really realize what it was that I was getting. But I learned to think for myself. I learned to ask questions. I learned to organize myself to get the required work done in the time allotted without anyone supervising me. I learned about the sheer diversity of opinions that exists on almost any topic. I met international students whose experiences reflected the differences of race and culture that exist on our planet. I gained admiration for academic excellence and disdain for the arrogance that sometimes accompanies academic success. Each of you embarks today on an adventure. Some of you have jobs lined up, some are off to graduate school, some will travel, and still others, like me 41 years ago, have no clue what you're going to do with your degree. Whatever path, you are leaving this campus at a time of great global change. China, India, Brazil, other developing countries are becoming economic powerhouses, while growth in much of the rest of the world is slow. Changing demographics, aging societies, these are driving a global talent hunt, and the digital universe is transforming social interaction and communication. The Arab Spring, Occupy movement, student protests in Quebec and elsewhere are signaling an underlying malaise that our elites and our institutions are still trying to understand. But this is an exciting time. It's a time when a new generation, your generation, is called upon to offer fresh thinking, new ideas, and new energy. I want to talk about choices, and I want to urge you to choose your destiny. I want to ask that you look for a vocation in life, not just a job. I want to ask you to have ambition, not merely for yourself, but also for your country. The 1960s, when I entered university, was a time of great accomplishment in Canada. It was the formative years of the welfare state, including Medicare and the Canada Pension Plan, a World's Fair in Montreal, and the adoption of our wonderful and distinctive national flag. It was a time when, for Canadians, anything seemed possible, when even the Maple Leafs could win the Stanley Cup. But it was a time of great pride for Canadians, and we were short of neither ambition nor hubris. A few decades later, and I fear that many young Canadians no longer look to the future with that kind of optimism. Today, though, more than ever, we need people who are prepared to work, to make Canada and to make the world at least a tiny bit better by relieving human suffering, by bringing healing and reconciliation, by saving the environment from human greed. Is that going to be your vocation? I've been privileged in my life to have served in high political office. As a representative of my country, I have met with presidents, prime ministers, and kings. I have met great Democrats, and I've met dictatorial tyrants. And I've met Nelson Mandela, who is in a category by himself. At its highest level, politics is a vocation, a calling best pursued by those who would make a positive contribution to their country and to the world. This is something that is easily forgotten in an age marked by scandal and cynicism. But occasionally the right person is in the right place at the right time, and history records the dramatic difference he or she can make. Nelson Mandela is that kind of leader. In his patience and humility, he was able to rise above the natural emotions that he felt of anger and bitterness and desire for retribution. He led a process of reconciliation because he knew that was the way forward. And he recognized his duty to all South Africans, not just his own followers. He chose peace after decades of violence and intolerance. He chose humility in the face of arrogance. Closer to home, Canadian Craig Kielburger is making a difference in the lives of millions of children around the world. Craig was a 12-year-old kid in suburban Toronto when he read a news story about a young Pakistani boy who had been sold into slavery as a carpet weaver. Fueled by passion and a sense of justice, he founded a group called Free the Children, and he began speaking out about the need to abolish child labor. So far, his efforts have helped build 650 schools in developing regions, providing education to more than 55,000 children every day. Now, he's giving convocation speeches too, and last year at the University of Toronto, he urged students to make, in his words, quote, "small changes with great love that will truly change this world for the better," end of quote. Now, many of us would have read that article about the Pakistani boy, felt troubled, and then moved on to some other pressing activity. Fortunately, Craig did not make that choice. Each of us has the ability to choose on a daily basis. We can drift with the tides and see where they can take us. Or we can rise every morning and say, I choose. I choose to make a difference for good. I choose to exceed expectations. I will seize the day. I believe this to be true as well of societies and of nations. I'm troubled by what I see in our society as the erosion of what I would call public space, the declining importance that we attach to collective action for the common good, and by the growing distrust of the state. I was amused but saddened recently by an episode of Family Guy. Now, maybe the parents don't know that show, but I try to stay tuned in. Family Guy, in which Peter leads the charge to disband the city government. He succeeds. He celebrates by ignoring the driving laws. But when pollution and chaos become too much to bear, he presents a solution. The solution looks a lot like the government that he abolished. Now, for the most part, Peter's grievances against government were trivial. And I don't want you to think that all dissent is trivial. But there are better ways to express dissent than that which we've recently been witnessing and chosen by Quebec student protesters. But I'm the first to admit that there is a genuine anxiety among the class of 2012 that could undermine our collective good if it's allowed to fester. You are graduating at a time of great global uncertainty. Canada has not been immune to the effects of this economic tumult. Many of you are going to struggle to find meaningful work, let alone your dream job. At a time when technology is redefining community, we should not and we must not forget that real as opposed to virtual communities must still function well in the interests of our health, safety, and security. I think we need to renew our politics and adapt our political institutions if we're going to overcome the challenges that the world is throwing at us. And we need to attract our best and brightest to the world of public affairs and public policy if we are to overcome today's challenges. The scope of these challenges is breathtaking. From climate change and global interdependence to huge demographic changes, terrorism, and organized criminality. How will we resolve these complex issues if we are trapped in an ever-increasing spiral of cynicism? And if our best minds, many in this room today, shun the institutions where public policy is implemented, if science is rebuffed in favor of ideology as a basis of policy making, can we change our politics? Political parties play a vital role in our democracies by offering voters coherent choices. But partisanship that cannot compromise, that demonizes adversaries and relies on vicious ad hominem attacks, degrades our public life. Citizens know that no political party has a monopoly on either wisdom or virtue. They know that we need leadership that emphasizes collaboration and constructive solutions. We need governments that are intelligent and inclusive, governments that invest in innovation and infrastructure and science and the arts. To achieve this, I think what we need is a new politics that recognizes that we cannot find solutions to ever more complicated problems as long as we remain stuck in our silos. In this, Canada's history of openness offers a competitive advantage. I see a future that's built on multiculturalism, multilateralism, multidisciplinary research, and private-public partnership. These concepts will define the new politics and the new skill requirements of those who shape the public policy of the future. I've had the privilege of visiting many countries of the world, and I believe that Canada is an experiment that has exceeded expectations. You don't need to go abroad for very long to appreciate our balanced commitment to economic prosperity and social progress, to tolerance and opportunity, as well as to security. And in a world in which security is an increasing preoccupation, I asked myself, what has security meant in Canada? At its root, of course, it means living free from fear and with the protection of the rule of law. More broadly, it means sensible natural resource management and the preservation of a clean environment as a necessary component of Canada's prosperity agenda. A strong economy and a healthy environment must be complementary goals. The security and well-being of our society also hinges on its inclusiveness. That means a commitment to quality health care for everyone. It means enabling people to realize their potential through quality education, access to new ideas, and support for innovation. I come from a family of modest means. Much of what I have accomplished so far in my life is a result of affordable public education. This broad, compassionate, intelligent, and inclusive concept of society is one of our great assets when we seek to make a difference in the world, and we should want to make a difference. Canada's voice must reflect our values of individual security, democracy, and equality. More than ever before, Canadians must embrace a sense of global responsibility and global mission. We are the proof that different peoples, traditions, ethnicities, and belief systems can come together in peace and prosperity. We are a model for the global village. But to shape it, we need people like you, the class of 2012. Educated, critical thinkers, eager to take your place in Canada and in the global community, choosing to do your part one step, one day at a time, so that your world may be a better place. It is your choice. You are our hope. Thank you very much.